Okay, so today we're going to talk about ways for your customers facing teams to use product data to maximize your revenue. Thanks for the thumb up. So I'm going to go through three pieces today. First, I'm going to give you some context on why we're having this talk, why what I'm going to discuss is probably more relevant than ever now. Second, I will dive into practical ways to leverage your product data to make money, actually. And then I'll share some examples I've seen working again and again with some of our customers, some people I've met, and with our own setup at June. And last, I'll wrap it up with a few takeaways. So this presentation should last 20 to 30 minutes, and then we will have 10, 15 for the Q&A. So as Paolo said, you can leave your question in the Q&A, and then we will answer them as best as we can. So 2 words about me, why I love this topic, and how I came to collect some learnings. So I'm the CEO of a company called June.so. We're customer analytics for B2B. What we do is we provide B2B SaaS with a customer analytic platform that enable their product and revenue teams. So that includes level like analytics, company profiles, and ways to crunch these signals and pass them to the CRM to actually make revenue. So one of really the thing I'm passionate about is really how you can transform your product data into revenue. And it's something we do a little bit with also my product. So that's how I ended up, building so much knowledge around that space. And a lot of the use cases I'm going to share today are actually use cases I've seen working again and again with some of our customers that were nice enough to open their playbooks. So first, why are we having this talk? So the genesis of this talk is that we used to work in a product-centric world where some companies prove that they can win with a better product. And one example I love to give is HipChat. HipChat is an Atlassian product that was used a lot in mid-market and enterprise for communication. Some of you probably know it. That product kind of lost against Slack when Slack came to the market. And for a lot of specialists, the reason why it happened is because Slack was really a superior product. This screenshot makes a little bit the point, but in case you've been using both, I think you would probably understand what I meant. Just that coconut noise when you would get a notification, I think just was delightful part of an example of that experience. But we all know the end of the story, which is that eventually Microsoft launched Microsoft Teams, and that tool really took over the market and became much bigger. So this is 2019. The difference is not so big. Now I think Microsoft Teams is almost 10 times bigger than Slack. So it's been like really, they've smashed it really, really much. So the question I want to raise is building a great B2B SaaS product enough in 2024 to be successful? And so if you're building a B2B SaaS, how can you best monetize it with your users today? And what are the best, ways to do that and the best learnings from typically the SaaS, the Slack playbook? So 10 years ago, product-led was enough for many SaaS product that thrive. Slack is an example, Dropbox is another one. And you could focus on free self-serve models for user acquisition. The SaaS market was less crowded, the growth statistics were easier like SEO, and the virality was more achievable. But that's not enough anymore. There was an analysis made by McKinsey on 107 publicly listed B2B SaaS companies, where they found out that only a third of them were product-led and only 11 of them were high performers. Moreover, they found out that product-led companies spent on average 10% more on sales, marketing, and R&D than the sales-led organization. And so examining the classic PLG example and going back to Slack, you see that actually one of the ways why Microsoft Teams won over Slack wasn't only because they had a better product, which was probably not even the case, but it was because they figured out a lot of other things. So the SaaS market has matured, as a matter of fact. Making PLG is much harder to execute, and the SaaS market is becoming even more commoditized than ever, and the viral opportunities are harder to achieve. So as founders, as founding teams, as operators, growth people, product people, whatever is your role in the SaaS or tech company, you need to adjust to understand how you can keep increasing this revenue and reach your target by the end of this year. So in my day-to-day, I'm lucky enough to be at the front row of this movement. And every month, I'm happy, I'm lucky enough also to help many companies figuring out the right balance between generating revenue with the product and the revenue teams. And we're seeing the rise of what we call customer engagement-led monetization. I couldn't find a better word. I'm not sure if this one is going to stick. But what I meant by that is that these successful teams prioritize creating exceptional products experience, ensuring ease of use, seamless expansion, and feature adoption. But they also consider beyond the user experience. They're able to deliver interactions and experience centered around what customers need through multiple touch points, whether they are inside or outside the product, and whether they're high touch through humans or low touch through, let's say, email notifications. And the key to this organization that I've seen again and again is that they're leveraging their data. And this is why we're here today to talk about one type of data in particular, which is the product data that you have. So the crux of this talk is to realize that product data is often, but not always, a good proxy for intent. And if you use something, and because if you use something, there is a chance that you will like it and you will be willing to pay for it, or that you are willing to use it more to get even more value from it. A very simple analogy is a shop near your place where you live, for instance. If you drop by a shop a lot of time, chances are you're already buying from it. And chances are that if a vendor comes to you, you'll listen what they have to say, and potentially you'll buy more things or something else based on the advice they gave you. And this is exactly the same thing with SaaS application or B2B SaaS. The touch points you may have with people based on your intent and behaviors can be really well influenced by human touch points or touch points in general that are driven with the product data. So in the next section, I'm going to share very precise way we've seen B2B SaaS companies use the product data to generate revenue. And this is actually the name of this presentation, the 5 ways to enable customer-facing teams to generate revenue with your product data. So I'm going to go through a traditional customer journey. And for each of these steps, I'm going to share one learning experience or something that worked for us or for some of our customers. I will share the exact playbook that I've implemented, as well as the kind of outcome that I've seen. So initially, this talk was called the 5 ways, but actually I figured out that I would merge number 1 and number 2, the activation and the conversion, because they really come in hand. It's because you activate people that they're able to convert, and vice versa. So I decided to finally merge 1 and 2, but there is 5 steps, but like 4 kind of big ways to make this happen. So let's start with the first way to improve your activation and your conversion and increase your revenue with product data. So what you need to know to improve, what do you need to know, to improve your activation and your conversion? The answer is knowing your product milestones. So the steps that your users need to go through to be successful with your product and retain. In practice, you can find these milestones by finding out the critical steps your most successful customers took. You can do that manually by checking them and the logs and the things they have done. Or if you talk with them because you haven't instrumented your product, you can also try to figure out what they have done in which order. Or you may play with the retention curve. So it's something that Reforge has advocated a lot in the past, finding your activation threshold, figuring out what drives the retention curve to the top and what events and actions make this happen. You can also just form some hypotheses in the beginning if you're quite early stage. Effectively improving these activations, hence your conversions, come down to laying down the clear path to the outcomes that your new users want to reach. So once you understand what these milestones are for your product, this is where the fun will begin. So a couple of ways on how you can measure that. There are a couple of analytic solutions to do it. Oftentimes, they will call it computed traits, and they will allow you to create traits based on the event logic. So the person has completed that or hasn't completed that. This is an example you see below with our own product. Otherwise, you would see companies typically doing that in the data warehouse by writing their own SQL or script. Once you have the milestones and it's clear how you've been instrumenting it, we can move on to the actions you can take out of it. So the first action we're seeing successful companies taking when they started to instrument their product milestones is actually sending documentations and case studies to help complete the milestones that are not done. This means, like let's say people should set up your product, people should then start engaging with your core features. This means like figuring out where they're stuck and then sending out these documentations wherever you have a communication channel. It can be Slack if you have shared Slack channels. It can be emails. It can be WhatsApp if you're using WhatsApp with your customers, with the actual playbooks that makes the most sense for them. The role of the person can matter a lot too. So for some apps, not everyone has the same role within your workspace. So for instance, Notion has admins and users, right? The admins set up the Notion and the users are the end users. They might not have the same milestones, and you may want to funnel them through different milestones to push toward this activation. A very common use case also is product that have a technical setup required, where you need to involve an engineer. If you figure out an engineer signing up to your product and they need to complete the technical setup, chances are you want to target that person with even more technical documentation to make sure they can complete the milestones. The automatic way of reaching out to these people is really a really good way to re-engage at scale. And it can work if the person likes to do things themselves. And it works both for low and high touch product scenarios. So something I haven't mentioned yet is that the journey we're going to go through is more or less important depending a bit on the product motion that you have. So let's say if you're very product led, but top of the funnel, so the activation and the conversion are going to be very important because you have a lot of people going through the door that you don't necessarily talk with. If you're more product sales led or success led, the next touch points are going to be more important because you're going to onboard these people manually. So chances are that they don't get set up are very low. And then on the rest of the journey, this is where you have the biggest off list. So these automated touch points are very, very good if you're more product led and if you care a lot more about these early touch points. But honestly, we've seen all kind of GTM motions sending these automated emails because they kind of do the work and they do the job for anyone who likes to self-serve. So onward. Onward. This is just an example of how you can actually make this happen. In your CRM, you may have some rules based on the milestones I mentioned, and based on whether or not the milestone is complete, you could say, okay, send an email or not. Tools like transactional emailing tools like Customer.io are also really good. And this is a screenshot of HubSpot, which is a CRM that we use and like. All right. So next action you can take is to send a personalized email. So this is something as simple as opening your Gmail, copy pasting the email of the person, and reaching out. So this needs to be something very genuine, very personalized, something you would respond to if you were to receive this email. If you're again pure product-led growth and have low volume, or you can do that. If you're more sales success-led, you can also send this personalized email. You may want to segment who you send these emails to target only the most relevant people. So for product-led, this might be like your VIP customers, the people that really matters the most. And then for your success and sales-led motion, this might be more just your ICP customers. It's going to be very important to prioritize who you reach out to. So the first action was automated. The second action I just mentioned is a lot more manual. And to achieve that, what you want to do is you want to pop up a task or an alert for a sales or success person rep to reach out to the users. There are a couple of ways to do that. You can either have a CRM that handles that. It's usually a very easy way to do that. It's my favorite, personal, because it centralizes every touch points with the person. So it makes sure you don't interfere with someone else from your organization reaching out, or it makes sure that you don't over message the person. Otherwise, you may just have a notification, let's say in the workflow tool you use every day, like a communication tool like Slack. This works really, really well. Okay, moving on to the last action. It's very similar, but it's just like more on the success side of things. You may have more one-on-one CS touch points accordingly. I mentioned the importance of prioritization. It is very important, especially for your manual effort, that you focus on your most important customers. So any kind of enrichment you can do, whether it's manual or automated when you scale, to figure out who deserves the most time is going to be very important. So a lot of the things may take some time and may not feel like obvious or worth your effort, but if they can make a difference, the only way to figure this out is basically to make sure you focus on the right person. So make sure you do that exercise too. In terms of results we can expect, we've seen as much as 10% increase of activation for low touch conversations, such as personalized emails, and as much as 20% for the higher touch processes where you jump on a call with people, offer some of your time, or just start a conversation in your email thread or in Slack. So this has pretty meaty uplift compared to what only the product can do in this beginning of their journey. And I think it has been a quite fantastic discovery, at least for me, coming from a product background. I used to be a PM at Intercom, to see that really the power of these human and automated interactions, if they're well timed and value added for the people. So, oftentimes when you look at the LinkedIn of a company and you see like a bunch of people working in support or in sales, and you wonder, what they're doing all day long, this is one of the things they do that actually brings a lot of money on the table. So really an epiphanic moment for me in the last couple of years. This is how a typical CRM setup can look like if you set up these things. So milestones, as I mentioned, on the one end, they're completed. You just move on, you do nothing. On the other end, they're not completed. And this is where you see this arrow flying to the bottom right. And this is where you have the next sequence that I mentioned of like, pinging you in Slack, popping up a task, or opening an alert, or sending these automated emails to as a foundation for your interactions. So now that we've seen this first way of increasing, your revenue through product usage data, let's talk about a little bit the next stage, which is once your people are activate in your product, how you may expand their account, how you may help them to spend more money inside your product through product usage data. So this time you want to measure different things. So I'm going to talk about 3 things that are very common in B2B SaaS companies that I'm working with. One of them is the number of active seats. It's going to be relevant if your pricing is seat-based, meaning that if people pay per the number of seats or per packages of seat that they have. The second one is the usage. There's many products where usage that with a usage-based pricing, and when they reach a certain limit of usage, threshold of active user, a threshold of email sent, a threshold of dashboard read, anything it can be based on your product, you would want to have this kind of conversation to be able to understand if they're willing to upgrade to an upper plan. So this is what I said in the beginning, but this is when someone using your product is a really good proxy of the value they find. And this is where using your product data is a good proxy to triggering this upsell, expand conversation. The last one is cross-product interaction. So this is going to be true if your product is a little bit more mature. This is a screenshot of Intercom. Intercom has a lot of products. And this is typically what they will show you when they want you to buy survey, which is a different feature that we didn't have in our Intercom account. They will show you an upgrade model. So typically what Intercom will do is that they will track when people hover these things or interact with it, and they will use it as a signal for the sales rep to actually put you in a loop to try to understand if actually, survey might be valuable for you and see if they can work out a plan with you. So again, the question is, what do you do with this data when you have it? So the first step here is to do something a little bit more high touch. Upselling and cross-selling people is a slightly bigger muscle to develop than just landing the people in your product if you were product-led again. So here, a typical action that we see very successful companies doing is to prompt an outreach process. So that means pinging their team with a note in their CRM or typically a Slack notification to say that there is an upsell opportunity and that they should work on this account. Then typically they would work on automated messages. So again, this is a good baseline for your expansion. It will also trigger conversation. Something I didn't say very clearly is that a lot of these automated emails will actually open the conversation. It will open transparently that you have identified that there might be an intent from your customers, or there might be value that they perceive in a set of features or a plan they haven't yet engaged with, and that you are here to help them figure out if this is the right thing for them. So for seat increase, you may send an email to warn the limit about to be reached. If the expansion is automatic, or then you may just send these emails. If it needs to go through human, then typically in these emails, you would propose a calendar slot or something like that. Same goes with product engagement. Here, this is a screenshot of customer.io, which is a transactional email tool that I really like. The last thing is, again, going through these 101 success calls. So for cross-product interaction, automatic emails or communication can work better if it's self-serve. But if you're slightly more high touch, you probably want to go through these higher touch points. And typically on the post-sales basis, it will be through a customer success. Team expansion is another kind of expansion I didn't mention, which is working really, really well. I just had a call with a company called Pigment in France. There's a FP&A solution for enterprise. And they actually mentioned to me that their CSM outreach to people within org that haven't signed up. So they are actually doing the work of expanding the accounts with people that are actually not even signed up. So that's also how far and how upstream the CSM team can go to try to make this expansion happen. It doesn't only have to be the people that sign up or register to the product. So analyzing which departments or teams within the existing accounts are not using the product is a great signal to look at. Present a tailor use case to other departments. Show how current users benefit from your product is a great way to expand. Or use data to demonstrate a clear ROI and the potential savings or efficiencies. The results here are widespread, but depending a bit on your maturity, you can see uplift from 5 to 40%. In mid-market or enterprise, these discussions on renewals can really lead to meaty increase. So a lot of time you will grow with your customers. You log them in a plan with them for like, let's say a year or two. And by the time you have this new conversation, your product offering has changed a lot, have evolved a lot. Your customers have grown a lot. And now you're able to have like, a very different conversation with a different, set of features, set of plans, set of pricing that you may want to introduce. And it's not surprising sometimes to see companies almost doubling their price when they expand. So something around 40% is totally stuff we see, in the day to day. So let's move on to the third way to actually increase your revenue with product data. And this is the renewal phase. So the renewal phase, in short, is when the contract is going to come to an end. You're going to have this conversation with your customers on whether or not they want to renew the contract with you, whether it's the same time or longer time or shorter time. So here, what you want to look at is pretty basic. It's actually when is the date of the renewal. You can pull this automatically from your billing system because it will always have it. It can also be something you enter manually if you don't have it or if it's broken or if you're more early stage and you don't want to over-engineer that. So again, going to the CRM setup, which is one I really love because it centralizes everything, you may have a column with the renewal dates coming, and then you may have some logic saying when the renewal date is less than 90 days or 30 days, warm me. You don't want that renewal date to be too far. Like 90 days is too long. People are not going to really pay attention to that. But something between a month or two is usually the sweet spot we're seeing for triggering this conversation because people will be mindful of that. The other piece you want to be tracking here, you want to understand, is who is your champion, who loves your product the most. This is going to be critical to engage this renewal conversation because these people are going to be the most likely to help you make the renewal contract happening. So this is again a screenshot where you see 5 users within an account. And you can clearly see that the first one is the champion. He's been using the product a lot more. So this is a screenshot again from June, so our product. Now in terms of actions, you want again to trigger this internal task or these Slack notifications. You also want to send this baseline of automated emails. So this is an example from Slack. Another year has come to an end, which means your annual Slack subscription on user list will automatically renew on February 19. People love to do that because the transparency will strengthen the customer relationships. And so informing your users is actually the best way to create this relationship and also to trigger the conversation. Sometimes your contract deserves higher touch. And so if you're like mid-market, high market, it's pretty much everyone. If you're like more product-led, maybe your VIP customers, your ICP customers. And this is the case, again, when it's coming to the end of the period. So engaged users are likely to see the value in renewing your product and because it's improving their daily workflow. And so focus on these customers, focus on the key features they're using of your product and enable them to connect their usage to the business value they're delivering. And this conversation should be very smooth in the end. One thing that was surprising that we found out is also that sharing with your customers charts or tables, showing them how they've been using your product is actually a really good way to make the renewals successful because you show them that they've benefited from your product and it reinforces the value and again, build the trust. So whatever tools you're using to visualize your customer usage of your platform, you may want to try to send a couple of screenshots, maybe anonymize a couple of things if, not everyone's supposed to be, knowing everything, but that can work and go a very long way again. Here, the uplifts you can see are also pretty meaty, from 5% on low touch, just emails, interaction and transactional things, to as much as 20% for more meaty conversation that you may have. Again, here, this conversation can really open the doors to things you haven't seen. I think one thing which is very important to note here is that the renewal rates has a big impact on the net dollar retention. So if you're a SaaS and net dollar retention is something you look at, chances are you want to look into this one mindfully, because it will directly impact the net dollar retention, because obviously people are going to renew or not with you. And then obviously you also have this conversation of the pricing and how much they would be willing to spend with you the next year. Sorry. I got some water, 1 sec. And then we move to the last part. All right, let's move to the last part on how you can prevent the churn with your product data. So typically people here are going to try to get an aggregate score of how people are interacting with your product. So again, if you have lots of customers, you might want to look into a health score. It's the best way to have an aggregate. If it's a little bit more early stage of you're like more enterprise and you just have a bunch of customers you're very close to, then maybe this is a little bit over engineer. But all in all, what you want is a way to get a big picture of the health of the users and where they're at. So it can be just, an NPS. It can be just product engagement. It can be just a pulse. A pulse is just like a CS person at your company, feeling like one line of information on a customer after having a chat with them. Like, do you feel they were like neutral, at risk, happy with the product? When companies scale, they will typically do a mix of that. So they will typically mix, whether people are using the product, which is a good signal, a good proxy, not always, but in many cases, of the health of the account. They will also put some satisfaction. You may use a product that you don't like because you have no other choice. So the NPS is important. But then NPS are not something you refresh every week. So you may want to have these pulse, which is what I mentioned here. The goal achievement is something slightly more advanced. But basically, the idea is that when you start working with an account, they have goals they want to achieve, and you may want to track that. So not just the conversation, whether they're happy with you and so on, but actually, do they achieve the goals they want to achieve? And this can be another indicator. So here, when you have this health score, what can you do with it? So the obvious one is just to notify your team of a falling health scores. So again, there are many ways to do that. Customer success platforms do it really well. You may do that in-house with your, with your data warehouse, with a BI tool. You may do that with your CRM. Now they're expanding on these use cases. Just take whatever works for you and whatever is, I would say, simple and streamlined in the get-go, so that you can just get something out of the box and just like keep iterating on it. I think it's very important to make these things visible. They tend to be very buried. And so if you can have some kind of badges or some visual cues of that, I think they can really take a long way. So this is something called deal tags that I really like, something I discovered recently, which are the little green, red, and yellow tags you see here. And I think a lot of tools will provide these kind of like peels or tags. And I think they can go a very long way for your categorization, or just to remind you where people are at on the health score. The same way you've built some playbooks in the beginning to help people complete the milestones they didn't complete. In this case, what you want to do is you want to build some playbooks of the people at risk. So you want to actually write genuine content that are going to interest your customers that are not finding success anymore with your playbooks. So this might be like, you don't get value from our product. Here are the 5 ways to resolve that. Or you still don't understand what our category is for, or what the heck is this category? Something very genuine, something you would actually love to read yourself and to leverage. And so again, you want to suggest the specific features tied to the business outcomes. Really, you want to tie that to where they want to go when they started with your product, either the assumption you get, or if you manage to talk with them, the business outcome they mention to you. In terms of outcome, you can expect as much as 10% with high touch. So again, a pretty meaty improvement from doing this work. All right, we're getting toward the end. So there's, I think, 2 more slides and it's already 30 minutes and I'm getting to the end. A little word on the implementation. We've seen a lot of companies burying their product data into warehouses or BI tools or like fairly complex or gated ecosystem that they don't have access to. I think really one of the key here is to understand where your teams take their decisions, your revenue teams take the decision, where they work from day to day. So for us, it's our CRM. For others, it can be a CSM platform, whatever you're using and you're happy with. It depends a lot on your also company DNA, and make sure that this data is available there and something you can work out of. So be very mindful of that. I think it's really the two sides that we're seeing right now: people that have it handy and actionable, and people that still struggle to make this data speak. We've been in the data analytics space in the early days of June, and we've seen that people don't really use them beside the product teams or especially the product managers. So oftentimes, just going with a product analytics is not going to be enough as a solution. You probably figured this one out already. And the last piece of advice is do have a data plan that, again, include your operational tools, like whatever you guys are using. I was going to skip this one because I think you will have it in the slides, which are different ways you can make this happen with toolings. I know people love toolings. And I'm going to wrap it up. So these are the takeaways from today. PLG, product-led growth alone, as a matter of fact, is not enough anymore. It's just not what it used to be. There's some companies that still have the luxury to make it work, but chances are you're not one of them, and we are not one of them at June, a disclaimer. To move the needle, you have to put in the actual legwork to drive the conversation with the sales. And you want to, for that, to have your product data and usage as a leverage. You can use it across the board in pre or post sales, and really it's been kind of like mind-blowing to see how much people have been able to leverage that to break through, I would say the historical trade-off between are you product-led or sales-led or whatever. Like, you might just be a mix of all of that. We call it customer-led, but call it whatever you want. Again, B2B product generates data, but because of a variety of reasons, it's not being maximized. And I hope after this presentation and this discussion that we have, you will see more of the value that you can get from making this happen. And so moving on to the last slide, thanks so much for listening. So you have my email here. My name is Enzo again. You can ping me if you have any questions to fix our product and CRM integration. We also put a lot of guides out there for free on June.so/guides. So you may just check them out. They are not gated. You don't need to leave an email. Just enjoy them. And yeah, if the product sounds any useful, we also created a special voucher for the Reforge community. It's called Reforge with a capital R, and you get 3 months away for free. And yeah, it's going to be valid for the next week or so. So yeah, feel free to reach out. And thanks, Paolo. I give you back the mic.
Awesome. Thank you so much for going through all of that with us, Enzo. We have a few questions that have been submitted from folks. So let me just start off with the first question here. Somebody asked, what if we don't have many attributes from a user? Let's say you only know that their role is admin or user. What do you do if you can't assign a product activity with a specific username or email due to security reasons?
Right. This is okay. If it's, yeah. So that's a great one. So yeah, a lot of like industries are restricted and won't be able to pass too much information. And so as you said, they will basically pass limited information. So typically it's the personal information that you don't want to pass. So you don't want to pass the first name, the last name, the email, things like that. But questions such as, questions typically that you would ask in the onboarding, like, what's your role, what's the company size and things like that. These are they're not really PII. They're not very sensitive information, right? It's just like an ID, which is a long token key with like a role or whatever, right? So I think you can actually pass a lot of this information without taking this risk. So typically we're seeing like, fintech, health tech companies using this, instrumenting their product and passing this information or enriching it. What you don't want is you don't want anyone to be able to know who exactly that person is. So you don't want a personal information. And what typically these companies will do is they will just hash the ID, and then you would need to go in your database to understand who is behind the ID in case there is any support needed or things like that. So it's a little bit a love and hate relationship here. Maybe figure out what you can pass, which is not sensitive, and lets you interact with people. And then I assume in your transactional toolings, I assume you have some sort of agreement from the person to reach out to them and to use their personal communication preference to do that, right? Even if it's like a sensitive information, probably people have signed off in your terms and condition that you can reach out to them or contact them in case they have a ticket or something like that. So you need to find, I think, the right balance between the two. If you're like in one of these restricted industry. Does it answer? I don't know if that answers the question. I hope so.
I think it does. And we've got another question here specifically about churn. So, is there another way at preventing delinquent churn, say, due to failed credit card payments, other than having recurring yearly billing?
Right. A delinquent churn. That's funny. I never heard this one. It looks like it's its own thing. I mean, yeah, the car payment is its own thing. I feel there is just so many tools out there that are just meant to try to prevent that or to redeem the money that you have, right? And I know there is like a bunch of SaaS that only do that. So my hunch is that this is its own category. I mean, for almost all the delinquent churn you can think about, there will be its own category of product to try to help you fix this one out. So my philosophy on this one is, figure out if you need to buy versus build these kind of things. For people not paying, then the question is very simple. Like, do you have a redeem process? Do you have a way to chase the person until they pay? And then kind of where is your threshold to where you cut your product, right? When do you decide to just not letting people access your product anymore? And again, a quite surprising insight here is that oftentimes warning people doesn't work, but actually blocking people from using your product after enough warning, of course, will actually get people to react. So sometimes you want to be a bit harder than you want to be because, I mean, everyone is very nice and gentle. Sometimes in business, you have to be a little bit more harsh, and that's the honest one. But then, yeah, if the person has used, you mentioned yearly also in your question, if the person didn't pay at all and use your product for 1 year, I think you pretty waited way too long and you've been way too generous to try to put this process into place because I think a year is like eternity for startups or for a tech company.
Great. Thank you so much for answering those questions, Enzo. And thank you for just sharing your expertise with us throughout this entire event.